The Archon characters in Genshin Impact have always brought about a huge power shift when they're released. Venti can spawn a black hole to suck in enemies. Well, if they're not obese anyways. Zhongli still has the tankiest shield in the game that also gave you free damage when you're protected by it. And that's why he's the leading cause of skill issue in the game worldwide. Raiden Shogun, or A, being responsible for the death of players knowing how to properly battery, as well as overcompensating in her electro damage because of the game state at the time. Nahida for, well, not that she was the one that put Dendro reactions on the map, but because of how long her application lasts, it stayed on the map. Obviously, also to blame for why most endgame content can just be beaten with a Hyperbloom comp. So, in contrast, what does Furina offer? Furina didn't bring anything completely new or unique to the table, so what made players pull for her? The pure excess and ease of access to the overpowered mechanics that already existed. Furina has two main calls to fame: her absurd damage and her ability to buff both team-wide damage and healing. Both of these buffing mechanics were in the game before Furina's release, but never together in a single character's base moveset. You could have the damage buff in Mona or Yelan, but you'd need Kokomi or Barbara for healing, and it wouldn't be as potent or active for nearly as long as Furina allows for. Not that you would actively want to use Furina's healing. All the above mentioned characters have a unique mechanic to them that sets them apart so as to not overlap or completely power creep them. Unless your name is Mona. Well, she has an alternate sprint, but that's not different in a good way. Yes, with the release of Furina, Mona has basically fallen to the copium version of her, like how most Dendro characters are to Nahida. Mona's sole gimmick she had over other Hydra characters at the time was her ability to apply an illusory bubble on an enemy that, when they're hit, will apply Omen on them and make them take more damage. Furina, on the other hand, just straight up makes your team do more damage depending on the change in your character's HP by percentage. To top it off, Furina's buff just lasts longer. Omen has a base duration of 5 seconds that can be extended up to 13 seconds, but that's only through freezing enemies, a reaction the game has not been kind to as of the past couple years. Meanwhile, Furina's fanfare buff lasts a total of 18 seconds, can be enabled just via healing, and also buffs healing bonus at the same time. So what does this mean? If you have Furina, there is quite literally no reason to use Mona over her unless you feel like being a fish whenever you sprint. Of course, if you don't have Furina, Mona is still an alright character, although at that point Yelan is still better than her even if her damage bonus comes in over time since her Hydra application is much better. Furina, while still incredible at what she does, doesn't completely overshadow the rest of the elements cast. She has these amazing buffs, but her Hydra application is on the slower side, letting characters like Xingqiu and Yelan generally keep their place as the premier applicators. Actually, Furina doesn't interfere with any of Xingqiu's strengths at all, since he is primarily good for his accessibility and plethora of utilities at his disposal. Between his passive Hydra application and his rain swords, damage reduction and interruption resistance, he still holds his place as one of the best characters in the game even after Furina's release. While there are some characters that are theoretically better at applying the element, like take for example Tartaglia, he has to be on field to do that. Xingqiu and Furina, you'd rather them be working from off-field and let your on-fielder do most of the work. But enough about how she compares to other Hydra characters. How much value does Furina give overall? Furina is absolutely busted in what she does because of the place she has in a lot of teams. As I mentioned before, all you really need for her to be great is some good healing. Once you have that, a whole slew of options open up to you. With Furina, most of every DPS can start using the 4-piece set of Marechaussee Hunter that increases the holder's crit rate whenever their HP changes, up to 36%. While the 2-set effect is more arbitrary, that's still a massive amount of free crit rate that can make building characters a lot easier. On another note, Furina herself wants to use the 4-piece set of Golden Troop for all the elemental skill damage bonus it gives, since as I mentioned, she'll mostly be off-field. This is great because both of these sets are from the same domain. It's basically a buy one get one free deal. Furina's best set may be Golden Troop, but other characters, namely Fischl, appreciates the set just as much. So while you're getting her artifacts, you can basically build an entire team while you're at it. When it comes to Furina's weapon options, she's decently flexible. While her best option is her signature Splendor of Tranquil Waters, she's got other good picks. Splendor is great for maximizing Furina's personal damage, but doesn't help her with her energy requirements at all. That being the case, Splendor's value on Furina can be matched by other weapons, the main one being Fleuve Cendre Ferryman. Listen, none of us like the fishing mechanic in Genshin, but Damn! Flucendre is to Furina like the catch is to Raiden. It gives so much value to Furina that it's not even funny. The base attack is whatever, since Furina scales on max HP for her damage, but the energy recharge substat, skill crit rate, and even more energy recharge after using an elemental skill are all what make it amazing. Furina's big selling points are in her burst and skill damage. Having the burst active as much as possible should be your top priority, and this weapon basically guarantees that. And that's why it's great. You've got other options for sure, but none of them are as accessible. Of course, you have your Favonius sword and other 5-star crit swords if you're not using them on anyone else. Hell, you can only have one of her other great weapons if you're a veteran, the Festering Desire. You can only have this sword if you got it from an event in version 1.2. Unless Hoya wants to correct me anytime soon. No? Okay then. Festering Desire is a more offense-oriented version of the Flucendre, where instead of giving more energy recharge in its effect, it just doubles down on her damage. It'll depend on how much ER you need, but if you don't need a boatload, you can choose to run Festering Desire instead and rival the damage of even some 5-star weapons. If you wanted to give her more, all of Furina's constellations are also worthwhile upgrades. Her early constellations are especially good if you wanted to invest more, but not all the way considering the cost. C1 gives her a baseline of 150 fanfare points when she casts her burst, and increase the cap to 450 points. This means not only will she give at least a 37.5% damage bonus, but also that the maximum for the buff goes from 75% to 100% if her burst talent is at level 10. C2 is another great constellation. Her second constellation makes it so she gets fanfare points 3 times faster, so she can max out her points even with less significant healers. And when she is overcapping on them, it gives her a crap ton more max HP. This effect is a crazy buff to both your uptime on the cap damage bonus and makes Furina herself do a lot more damage because her abilities scale off her max HP. Amazing stopping point if you wanted a good place to do so. Should you go one step further though, C3 gives 3 talent levels to her burst, which means another increase to the damage bonus, now capped at 124% when fully maxed out. Furina's C4 can lower her ER requirements by a good 50% because she regenerates her own energy when her Scion members hit enemies or heal characters. Over a single rotation, she can get 16 energy back from this effect. C5 gives 3 talent levels to her skill. Crazy buff since it's her source of damage, and a huge one at that. Last but not least, Furina C6 turns her into a damage behemoth. When she uses her skill, she gets a Hydra Infusion lasting 6 hits that can't be overwritten, and her damage is increased by a portion of her max HP and will have different effects based on her Arca alignment. In Uzia, her default state, her normal attacks heal the entire party over time. In her Anuma alignment, the damage bonus on that infusion is super buffed by a larger portion of her max HP and drains your party's HP instead. But that's mostly fine since the summon from her being Numa aligned is still there. Plus, you're trading that for her to do absolutely nuclear levels of damage with those 6 hits. So, all in all, if you decide you want to get upgrades for her, her constellations are extremely good at making her significantly better at her role. Of course, not that you need them for her to be phenomenal in the first place. Alright, time to answer the ultimate question. Should you try to pull Furina? Well, I could sit here and tell you that it's ultimately up to you to decide if she's worth pulling for. I'm sure you could have figured that out on your own. What I will tell you instead is that I honestly believe she's worth the pull. Furina is on the border of almost being a Bennett level support, offering great off-field sub damage and an amazing damage and healing buff to the entire team that is fairly easy to access. She can be slotted into a wide variety of teams and whose element is one of the best in the game due to the flexibility you have with it. Even while you may have other Hydro options, Furina being the mostly all-in-one package may be what you want instead. For more information, check out the guide on screen or in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back for another video. See ya.